Hari Om. Okay. So now in chapter 1, Arjuna presented to Krishna many reasons why he will not fight in this battle or why this war should not be fought. So now comes chapter 2, which is called Sankhya Yoga. The word Sankhya has many meanings, but in this context, it means analytical knowledge. So Krishna now is going to analyze for Arjuna why you should fight this battle on different viewpoints. Okay? So there is a chart I circulated, I think sometime back on the chat group. I gave you what you call a summary of chapter 2. In fact, chapter 2 is also known as the entire Gita condensed in chapter 2. All the main teachings of Krishna are crystallized in chapter 2. So Sankhya means analytical knowledge. Krishna is going to analyze for Arjuna on different standpoints why you should fight this war. So first of all, from verses 11 to 25, Krishna explains to Arjuna that you should fight this war from the standpoint of the soul. Now what does that mean? We have two choices when we perform any actions. If we consider ourselves this body, that is called ego. We identify with this body and we perform all our actions. Whatever actions we perform, thinking ourselves as this body, we will incur punyam and papam. Punyam is merits, papam is demerit, right? Now, because you have performed your actions considering yourself as this body, as ego, and you incur this punyam and papam, as a result, what happens? You have to take rebirth. So for the punyam to exhaust the good things, so all the good experiences now you have in your life is because you are exhausting your punyams. So that's why I tell people, if you're having a lot of good times in your life, you should not rejoice. Why? Because you're burning up all your punyams. And if you're having so many hardships in life, you should rejoice. Why? Because you're burning up all the past bad karmas that you're carrying. And until you don't finish burning up all this punyam and papam, you will carry on in this cycle of birth and deaths. So how to get out of this? That's the secret which is given in the Bhagavad Geeta. How to get out of this cycle of birth and deaths. That is if you consider yourself as this body. But if you are able to understand this knowledge of the self, the knowledge of the soul, Atma Gyan, that you are the soul, the consciousness in this body, you are not the body. If you are able to understand and grasp this and apply it in your life, every transaction that this body does, the soul is a witness. The soul does not tell the body or the mind what to do. The soul is merely a witness in this body. So, every action then performed by the body becomes pure. There is no punyam, there is no papam. And you break this cycle of continuous rebirths. But to understand this philosophy is very, very difficult. To come to this. So, it is not through one class you're going to realize and then all of you don't come back next class. It is going to take a very long and continuous journey. How long? How long? It depends how much effort you put into it. Okay, so some will achieve faster, some will take several lifetimes to achieve this goal. So 11 to 25, Krishna presents this essence of acting all your actions from the standpoint of the soul. But Krishna also understands that it is not easy. And right now a battle is about to start. Arjuna is to fight the war. So what does Krishna do? From verses 31 to 38, he comes down one level. And he tells to Arjuna, okay Arjuna, never mind if you are confused about this performing actions as the soul, let us keep this aside. But you still have to fight this battle. You cannot avoid this battle. Why? From verses 31 to 38, he tells him, you need to protect your honor and your reputation. Everybody knows you're a great warrior, you're a great soldier. Arjuna was that type of archer who could close his eyes and hear by sound and hit the arrow to his target. He was such a great archer. He was known for his bravery and for his, what we call his skill in battle. So he says to Arjuna, to protect your name and your reputation, you still have to fight. Do you want people to say Arjuna was a coward? He was sitting there in his chariot crying. To a brave warrior like you, it would be very hurtful to you if people pass a lot of bad remarks about you. So Krishna comes to a more practical level. From the worldly standpoint, you still have to fight this battle. Then Krishna goes to introduce a very important concept in the Bhagavad Gita from verses 40 to 50. And what is that concept? The concept of karma yoga. So there are only two concepts which are presented in the Gita. One is jnana yoga, which is the science of the soul, which we just discussed from verses, we are going to discuss from verses 11 to 25. And the other is karma yoga from verses 40 to 50. Now, what is karma yoga? Karma yoga consists of two words, karma and yoga. Karma is action. Yoga is that action which unites us with the Supreme Being. So put together, what is karma yoga? Right action, fixing your mind on the Lord, surrendering your action to the Lord, right action with right attitude. What is that attitude? Krishna gives us that secret in the Gita. He says, consider yourself always as an instrument in my hands. So do not take credit, do not have ego that everything you're doing, you are doing. No, consider yourself as an instrument in the hands of the Lord. And fix your mind on the Lord and discharge all your actions. What is the result of that? You won't have any punyam, you won't have any papam. Your action becomes pure when you surrender mentally, surrender to the Lord. And in these verses 40 to 50, the fundamental practice of karma yoga, how to practice karma yoga, is given to us in verse 47. That is the foundation of karma yoga. If we can read this verse, memorize this verse, apply this verse in our lives, every action that we perform will be pure, will not have any punyam papam, and you escape the cycle of birth and death. But to understand this, escaping the cycle of birth and death, we must understand the science behind the three karmas, the three types of karmas. For those who have come for previous classes, you will already know this. Our lives are governed by three karmas. Sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, and agami karma. Okay? Sanchita, S-A-N-C-H-I-T, Sanchita. Prarabdha, P-R-A-R-A-B-D-H-A. Okay? Prarabdha. And agami, A-G-A-M-I, agami karmas. Now, what are they? First of all, let us look at Sanchita karmas. Once we understand this, we know how to get out of the cycle of birth and death. What are Sanchita karmas? Sanchita karmas are the warehouse of all your past cumulative actions. Positive and negative, this is your warehouse. Each of you carry your own Sanchita karmas. Okay? Now, when you take this particular birth, a portion of your Sanchita karmas is removed out from the warehouse of your karmas, some positive, some negative, and is allocated for you to exhaust in this life. So, because of the positive, you go through positive circumstances in your life. Because of the past negative karmas you go through upheavals in your life. And until you don't exhaust these prarabdha karmas, death does not occur. So death will only occur when all these prarabdha karmas are exhausted. You cannot do anything about them. They have been allocated for you to exhaust in this life. You cannot change them. There is nothing you can do about them. Okay? So you have the warehouse. Now, some people ask me one time, but sir, why doesn't God take all the sanchit karmas and give me one shot in this birth? I burn up everything. I don't have to come up. Can you imagine? You have gone through several lifetimes, millions and millions of years. How much of punyam and papam do you have in your warehouse? If God were to take out everything one shot and give you, what a roller coaster life you will have, Can you imagine that? So by His grace, that's why God is also known as one who allocates your karmas for you. He doesn't determine your karmas. He doesn't determine whether you suffer or enjoy. So Shakespeare actually wrote a very beautiful work. And in that one beautiful line he's written, the fault lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. Shakespeare said this hundreds of years ago. I don't know whether he attended Gita classes in London or what. But he said this, the fault lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. Amazing that he could already, understand this whole Vedantic philosophy. We blame our bad luck to our stars. We say, my stars are bad, I can't help it, what to do, whatever I do, it doesn't work. The stars are only telling us what is going to happen. What are the positive and negative barriers in your life? The stars do not determine what happens to you. That has already been determined by your past actions. So the stars are only telling you, by reading the stars you can tell what phases of life you're going through, but they don't dictate what is going to happen to you. Okay? That is important. So prarabdha karma. Now, sanchit karma warehouse, you can't do anything about it. Prarabdha karmas, you also can't do anything about it. But one thing you can do, and that is called agami karmas. Agami means the fresh, new karmas that you are going to create in this birth. That is in your control. So you have to ensure that you don't create any more karmas, because you will keep on adding to your warehouse, your sanchita karmas. Now, how do we do that? That is where the spiritual knowledge comes in. So, any action performed with knowledge, it is not just performing good action. If I perform action by ego, even if I go and do charity, I give donation, I give large amounts of charity, I do so much of seva, but I do it with ego, that action will still give me a result. So if I understand the philosophy of right action, I apply the knowledge in my action, I have burnt off all these results of my action. So the agami karmas are now in your control. Now, if you are careful about your actions and you don't create any new actions, you will live until your prarabdha karmas are all burnt out. And when you, before dying, before you reach a state of enlightenment, okay, while you're alive, you study the scriptures, you follow the teachings of the scriptures, you attain a state of enlightenment while you're alive, then what happens? The Lord will burn away all your sanchita karmas. All your past warehouse of karmas are all burnt off by the Lord. So now, you have not created any new karmas in this life. You have exhausted the prarabdha karmas upon death. Lord has burnt away your sanchita karmas. There is therefore no more reason for you to take another birth. So our main focus or target in this life is to make sure we don't create any new karmas and we live according to the words of the scriptures to attain the state of enlightenment while we are alive. Enlightenment must come while we are alive, not after death. So that enlightenment while we are alive is called Jivan Mukta. Jivan means life. Mukta means you're free. Free of what? Because don't forget, even when you have attained enlightenment, It doesn't mean that you don't go through the ups and downs of life. But when you attain enlightenment, nothing at all troubles you. Everything you can go through life understanding the highest philosophy. So you are called a Jivan Mukta. You are free from the shackles of this birth. And when death comes, you don't come back for another birth. That is called Videha Mukta. You don't come back to take another body. So that is basically the teachings here. Karma Yoga, which Lord explains from verses 40 to 50. Now, these next three verses, 51, 52, 53, very important verses. 51, 52, 53. What are they? They are the three ladders that we must climb in order to attain salvation. From 51 you go to 52, 52 you go to 53. Now what does it mean? I'll give you in a crystallized way. Supposing you start your spiritual journey, you first start with Karma Yoga. Okay, you convert all your actions into worship of the Lord. So you start your journey with Karma Yoga. Why? Because by the time you come to knowledge, it's going to take some time. Okay, to absorb this knowledge is going to take some time. So first of all, you start with Karma Yoga. Your day-to-day activities, whatever actions you do, whatever even prayers you do, you have to be very careful. Because if you pray that you want so many luxuries in life, you pray that you want to go to heaven, what happens? All that is temporary, you will get it. But the thing is, you are stuck in that same cycle again and again and again. So what should you pray for? You go to a temple, what should you pray for? Pray for knowledge, pray for enlightenment, right? Pray for all those things, because knowledge will give you that enlightenment. But whatever worldly things you pray for, you will get it, but you will be stuck in the same cycle of expectations. So what does 51, 52, 53 say? You start with Karma Yoga, purify all your actions, perform all your actions as an instrument in the hands of the Lord, purify your mind, then come to Jnana Yoga. Then you come to the study of the scriptures. Once your mind is purified, there will arise a thirst for knowledge, and you will be able to grasp this knowledge. Right now, when your mind is troubled, it has got so many impurities, it's not easy to sit down and understand and grasp this knowledge. So how do you grasp this knowledge? Perform Karma Yoga. Convert every action into a worship of the Lord. You purify yourself, you will find that you have a thirst for this knowledge and you're able to grasp this knowledge. And then what happens when you attain this knowledge? Then comes the beautiful 18 verses that close chapter 2, verses 54 to 72. The most profound verses in chapter 2. They are called śīta-uṣṇa. Sthita means steady, prajna means wisdom. Once you are endowed with this wisdom, steady wisdom, means this knowledge stays constant with you through all your life, throughout your day. What is the marks of such a person? Arjuna asks Krishna this question. Supposing I go through Karma Yoga, I purify myself, I go through Jnana Yoga, I attain that knowledge. How do I know as a checklist, am I progressing on the spiritual path? So these 18 closing verses of chapter 2, Krishna paints the picture of the highly realized soul. He gives us many qualities in these 18 verses. So to us, what does it mean? Use it as a checklist to test whether are you progressing on a spiritual path. The more and more of these qualities that you have in these 18 verses, it means you are making progress. Okay? So this is how chapter 2 is structured, and just to give you an overall view, and now we will get into the verses that we are supposed to go into, right? So last week we stopped at verse number 10, and now in verse number 11, Krishna's teachings now start. All the while he has kept quiet, he has not said anything, but now his teachings start. So in verse number 10, what did we see? Very interestingly, we saw Krishna give a smile, prahasan eva. Now Krishna smiles. So commentators write, why did Krishna smile? Actually, the word is prahasan eva, as if he was smiling. So he's not laughing or he's not mocking Arjuna at his pathetic state. That gentle smile he's giving is telling Arjuna, my son, now you have surrendered to me. Now you said you're taking shelter at my feet. Now I'm ready to instruct you. I'm ready to guide you. So it's an assurance from Krishna that from now onwards I will take over your progress in the spiritual path. So what does it tell us? All we need to do is surrender. And that beautiful verse, chapter 2, verse 7, we can use it as a prayer verse. Every day go to the altar, just recite that verse. That I surrender to you, Krishna. I am your disciple. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava. Beautiful verse. At that point, Arjuna surrenders, Krishna takes over. Now, what is the very first teaching that Krishna wants to give to Arjuna? So first thing is, Krishna of course wants to settle is Arjuna's grieving. He's sitting there crying and crying. First important thing I want to settle is, why is this man crying? So in verse number 11, he tells Arjuna, you grieve over those who should not be grieved for. And yet you speak like the learned person. Wise men do not grieve over the dead or the living. So the question, the fundamental question we ask ourselves is, why do we grieve? Arjuna is grieving, but we also want to ask ourselves, why do we grieve? If we are happy throughout our lives, no problem. Nobody will come for Bhagavad Geeta class. They only come because to find out, why am I grieving? Why is my mind so troubled? So Vedanta meaning study of the scriptures, tells us that you are grieving because of the big fundamental problem that you do not know who you really are. That is your problem. You might say, but I know, this is my name, I'm father or so and so, mother. That is everything connected to what? Connected to what? The material body. But the scriptures are telling us, you are the soul, you are not this body. But since the day we are born, we are given a name. The name belongs to who? The body, not the soul. Then from that time you're born, you start having relations. Father, mother, brother, sister, grandfather, grandmother, uncle, this, that, colleagues, all that. All the relationships belong to who? To the body, not to the soul. So continuously, from the time we are born till the time we die, we are chasing after this body, right? Everything we do is to please this body. Do you realize that? You eat good food, who are you pleasing? The body. You go for makeup, facials and all that, who do you please? The body. Botox injections, body also. Everything we are running after the body from birth to death. Nobody has told us about the soul. Okay? So what do you call a person from birth to death running after the body? Whole day busy running after the body? Somebody said that. You call that person a busybody. Because whole time he is chasing after the body. So because of the ignorance that we are the soul, we entangle ourselves with the body. Every action that we do therefore binds us. We go through happiness, sorrow, victory, defeat, plus and minus, everything we go through. So here Krishna is asking Arjuna, he says, Tvam, you Arjuna, anvasochas, you are grieving for asochan, for those who are not worthy to be grieved for. Now why does he make such a statement? You are grieving for those who should not be grieved for. Why is he telling him that? You grieve over those who should not be grieved for. Who is Arjuna grieving for? Who is he grieving for? Bhishma Pita, Dronacharya, all his beloved people. Are they dead? The battle has not started. He says, what are you grieving? They are all still alive. What are you crying for? He is going ahead and saying, oh, these people will die, then the men will die, the women and children won't have anybody to protect them. What is the point of killing? Everything he's talking about, but nothing has happened so far. Then he's saying, I'm not interested in the kingdom. What happiness will I get if I win this war? You have not even fought the war. You don't even know whether you are successful or not successful. So you are crying over something that has not yet happened. You are wasting your time crying. So he's telling him now, yet Bhasa say, you are speaking like a prajna vadams, like a words of the wise person. Why does he say that? Because Arjuna so beautifully presented his argument in chapter 1, why this war should not be fought. But the problem was Arjuna was not speaking out of wisdom, he was speaking out of total confusion, total delusion, just to run away from this battle. So he says, you speak like a wise man, but all your actions are not reflective of a wise man. Because why? You're sitting there and you're crying and crying and crying. So in the end he tells him, Pandita. Pandita here means wise people. Now who is a Pandita? Normally we say the priests in the temple, we call them as Pandits, right? So does it mean anybody wearing, myself also today wearing orange? Am I a Pandita? Pandita is not reflected by the clothes that you wear or the place that you stay. Pandita reflects a person who has the knowledge, who has come to that type of realization. So Krishna is saying, Pandita, the wise people who are equipped with the spiritual knowledge, they don't grieve, they don't cry. Gatasun, for those who have departed, they don't waste their time crying. And agatasun, for those who are living also, you shouldn't be crying. So neither for the dead or for the living should you cry. But here's one very important word in this verse number 11. Anusochanti. Now, we ask ourselves this question. Krishna is saying, wise people don't grieve. Does it mean that if you reach a state of enlightenment, you sit like a robot? Somebody tells you a joke, you sit like that. Something happens in your life, you don't cry, you just sit there. Can a human being sit like a robot and not grieve and cry or not laugh? So the word anusochanti means what? Don't cry again and again and again over the same thing. We dig up our past, all the problems of the past, the hurts of the past, and we keep on crying again and again and again. See, there was one story one Swamiji told about a Swamiji. He told a joke to the audience and everybody laughed like mad, So the Swamiji said, did you enjoy my joke? He said, yes, Swamiji, I'll tell the same joke again. One more time he told a joke. Of course, there was less laughter because they already heard the joke. So he said, oh, you're still laughing. Let me tell you the same joke again. The third time he told, fourth time he told. By the time there was less and less and less laughter. Then somebody said, Swamiji, why do you keep telling the same joke again and again? How are we going to laugh at the same joke again and again? The Swamiji said, that is the problem with you all. You cannot laugh at the same joke again and again, but you can cry again and again over your past problems. Or that you can keep on crying, but same joke you cannot keep on laughing. And that is the paradox of human life. So here the word anusochanti is telling Arjuna, why are you crying again and again? You're grieving the same point you're telling. So what is saying that Pandita, meaning wise people, they don't sit down crying again and again. They do experience some sorrow, they do experience happiness. But what do wise people do when they are faced with a situation? What do wise people do when they are faced with a situation? They take action. They take action. Isn't it? They don't sit down and cry and cry. So if you are a wise man, you know that this battle has to happen. You can cry for your relatives, but are you going to sit down there and cry again? Now, from this verse also, there is another very important message told to us here in this verse. normally our mind, where is our mind? Where is our mind? Hopefully your mind is here, but generally where is our mind? Either in the dead past or the unborn future. So here the dead and the living represent what? All the time our mind is crying about the dead past and crying about the unborn future, the uncertainty of the future. And this is the problem. We are not able to control our mind and hold it at the present. So this is what the verse is telling us. You're crying about the past, you're crying about the future, but what about the present? The present is where we should take action and progress in the right path. So that is what he's trying to tell Arjuna. You're talking about the future, this will happen, that will happen, nothing has happened yet. So why don't you start getting up, pick up your bow and arrow and go and fight this battle? So now he tells him another very profound thing in verse number 12. Now when we want to talk about the soul, it's not very easy, because if I tell you to describe a mango, you can tell me it is yellow in color, it is soft, the flesh is very sweet, and so forth and so forth. Now how do I tell you about the nature of the soul? Because the soul has got no shape, no size, no color, it has got no attributes, it is just a mass of consciousness. So the scriptures have got to find a way to explain to us about the soul. It exists, but how do I tell you about it? So often the soul is compared to either space or either light. So just like space is everywhere, soul or the consciousness is everywhere. It is in the body, it is also outside the body. And it is like light, it has got effulgence, it provides life to everything. So body is made of matter. Matter, as science tells us, is inert, it has got no life. It is made of the 5 elements, ether, air, fire, water, earth. But because of the presence of the soul in the body, it provides life to the body. So now how do you describe this? So look at the beautiful way that Krishna describes about the soul. So he says here, in verse number 12, never was there a time when I was not. Imagine now Krishna is telling Arjuna, never was there a time when I did not exist. And not you also, there was never a time when you also didn't exist. And these lords of men, all the kings and the soldiers who are assembled on the battlefield, they also existed throughout their time. Never was a time when they did not exist. What about the future? There will never be a time hereafter when we all shall cease to be. Now imagine if somebody tells you, never was a time when you cease to exist, would you believe that person? Right, because it's very difficult for us to comprehend such a thing. We know our date of birth, and of course we don't know the date of death, but we know eventually it will happen. So how can you say that I existed before this birth? So therefore, to understand the soul is not very, very easy. So there is a very nice story from the life of Adi Sankaracharya. At a very young age, he left his home and went in search of the truth. Okay? And he finally met the person who was going to be his guru by the name of Govindapada. And the first time he met his guru, Govindapada asked him the question, who are you? And this is what Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says. He says we must constantly question, who am I, until we come to that conclusion that I am the soul and not the body. In fact, he wrote a whole essay on this, who am I? Okay? So Govindapada asked Sankaracharya, who are you? And Shankaracharya, on the spot, he composes Atma Shatakam. You can go to YouTube, key in Atma Shatakam, and hear this beautiful rendition of Shankara. Shatakam means 6 verses, Atma means on the soul. And each verse ends with the same line. he tells the Guru, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. He says, Guru asks, who are you? He says, Aham, I am Rupa, of the nature of what? Chid. What is Chid? Consciousness. I am consciousness. Ananda, I am bliss. Shivo in this case refers to auspiciousness. So then he tells the Guru, I don't have a father, I don't have a mother. Why? He had a father and mother, but he says, I don't have a father, I don't have a mother. Why? Because I don't consider myself as this body, I consider myself as the consciousness. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. I don't have birth, I don't have death. The soul doesn't take birth, the soul doesn't die. The soul doesn't have any relationships. So it is Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. This is something constantly we have to keep on reminding ourselves. Now tomorrow please don't go to a party, if somebody asks you, who are you? Don't say Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. It will take some time for us to absorb this knowledge and live by this knowledge. But Shankara already was a realized soul and he already grasped this knowledge. So here, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Na tvam ime janadipa, na aham, na eva aham, asam chatu. There was never a time when I did not exist. In fact, later on in chapter 4, the same kind of conversation crops up. If you look at chapter 4, verse number 1, chapter 4, verse number 1, page, 79, is it? 79. Now here in chapter 4, Krishna tells to Arjuna, hey Arjuna, this knowledge which I am imparting to you today, actually I have already given this knowledge thousands of years ago. He says in verse number 1, I imparted this very same knowledge which now is called the Bhagavad Geeta, but thousands of years ago it was called the Vedas. The Gita is a constant condensation of the Vedas. So he says thousands of years ago, I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, the sun god. So as you all know, in our culture, every element that we have in nature, there is a deity. So for wind, as Varuna Devata, wind is what? Vayu Devata. For water is Varuna Devata. For sun is Surya Devata. So Krishna says, I gave this knowledge to the sun god. And the sun was created before the whole creation came about. And what did the sun god do? He gave the knowledge to Manu. Manu was the first human being who walked this planet Earth, like Adam and Eve. Manu's wife was Satarupa. What did Manu do with this knowledge? He passed it down to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku was the first ruler of the Solar dynasty, from where Lord Rama has come from. And then he says in the next few verses, slowly this knowledge was passed on from father to son, from guru to disciple. It went on and on and on. Then what happened? He says in verse number 3, thus and handed down through the ages, this knowledge got lost. Lost meaning it was less and less practice. More people became materialistic rather than spiritualistic. So they started taking to more materialistic distractions. So what did Krishna say? Now I have come back to re-establish that knowledge. So now this creates a doubt in Arjuna's mind. If you look at verse number 5, right? Verse number 4. Verse number 4. Arjuna now is asking Krishna, you told me that you gave this knowledge to the sun god, and the sun god was thousands and thousands of years ago, but I know you have just recently taken birth. So how is it possible that you were around for thousands of years ago? So this is where Krishna answers to him in verse number 5. Arjuna, you have passed through several births. Krishna says, I also have passed through several forms. Actually, Krishna, so that means the Supreme God has taken various what we call avatars throughout the ages. Rama avatar, Krishna avatar, Buddha. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are given 10 avatars, dasa avatars. Okay? Krishna is said to be the 8th avatar, Buddha is the 9th avatar, and the 10th avatar has not come yet. It will come at the end of this Kali Yuga. So Krishna says, I also have taken different avatars, but what is the difference between you and me? The difference is, you don't remember your past births, but I remember everything. Which form I took, everything I remember. So here also, in back to chapter 2, verse number 12, he's telling Arjuna, never was a time when you were not there. So who is this you? Now we ask the question, what do you mean by you are saying never was a time when you were not there? Who is this you now? So it cannot mean the body, because the body was not there before this birth. I had a different body. Therefore, what he's trying to tell him is that as the soul, you have already existed before. You are by nature, you are the soul. You are not this body that you claim to be. So he says, never was a time when I was not there, nor you were not there, and all these soldiers who are standing on the battlefield have always existed. So this is the first quality of the soul. He's indirectly is telling us. What is that quality? The soul is nitya. I've sent you the notes also, you can refer. Right? In verse number 12, he's giving us the first quality of the soul, which is nitya. What is nitya? Nitya means eternal. Eternal means yesterday it was there, today it is there. When this body falls, the soul will carry on its journey also. The soul will always exist. It existed before the body came into existence. It exists now with the body, and when this body falls, the soul will continue to exist. So he's telling him that if you he's basically explaining to him what is the nature of the soul versus the nature of the body also. So this is the first quality. Now in the next verse, 13, and this is a very famous verse in the Gita, verse 13. Many times you see when obituaries are printed, you will find this verse there. Okay. So what does this verse say? Just as the soul in this body passes through childhood, youth and old age, so does it pass into another body. The steadfast one is not deluded. So here is another teaching here. Soul does not change. It remains changeless. Although it is in this body, it is the body that is changing through kaumaram. Kaumaram here means boyhood. Then it changes to yauvanam, which is youth. Then it goes to jara, which is old age. But the soul in the body remains changeless. It witnesses all the change. So the thing is problem with us is because we identify with this body, we keep on worrying about all the changes to this body. And the soul is changeless. So what are we supposed to do now if we know that it is a body that is going through changes and not the soul? He says, in the same way, what happens? Okay, this body is going through changes. What happens when this body dies? Does the soul die along with the body? No. He says, dehantara, the soul praptir, it acquires another body. Now, we have just heard the explanation. Why does this body die? Why does this body come to an end? Because the prarabdha karmas are all exhausted, the body has got no more use, it goes off. But the soul travels on to look for another body because there's still some more karmas to be settled. So when another body forms, the soul merely energizes that body and again life starts, all the karmas start again. Okay? So until the prarabdha karmas are exhausted, the body will not fall. So the next quality that he gives us here in this verse is nirvikaraha. That means the soul is not subject to any change or modification at all. Okay. But what about the body? See, in the Adi Shankaracharya's Tattva Bodha, he tells us that the body goes through 6 different changes. 6 different changes. What are they? Asti. That means the body exists. In the womb of the mother, it exists first. So that is the first manifestation. The second is Jayate. It takes birth. Third is Vardate. It grows from small to big. It grows. Next is Viparimate, which means it changes. Changes meaning what? Black hair turns to white, skin becomes wrinkled, all the modifications happen. Then Apakshiyate, it decays. And finally Vinashati, it perishes. So all these 6 qualities belong to the body but not to the soul. That is very important. And therefore he says, we see all these changes, we get affected. But Krishna says here in verse number 13, the steadfast one is not deluded. Dhira, the word used for the steadfast one is dhira. Dhira means an enlightened person who understands, who has discrimination, who understands that it's the body that is undergoing changes. I as the soul will carry on the journey. The soul will never die, so I will carry on the journey. I don't age, so the soul never celebrates happy birthday. Who celebrates? The body celebrates happy birthday. We burn the candles for the body, not for the soul. And that reminds me of another beautiful story of how this dhira, the enlightened ones, considered their body. There is a book written by Swami Tapovan Maharaj, very interesting book. Swami Tapovan Maharaj is the guru of Chinmayananda, Swami Chinmayananda. And he wrote this book called Wandering the Himalayas. So for many years he tracked the Himalayas, he went up and down, and he met different sages and saints and had experienced a lot of different things from them. And one particular experience stands out in this book. The Swami writes that he came to this particular town which was at the edge of a forest. And these sages and saints, they used to sit on the rock at the edge of the forest and meditate. Unfortunately, sometimes tigers used to leap out from the forest, grab hold of the sage and drag them into the forest. So you would think it's a very frightening thing. The sage would be probably crying and screaming for his life. But he actually witnessed that as these sages were being dragged by the tiger, they were saying, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am the soul, I am not this body. They had no fear in them that death is coming, because they know that they will be carrying on this journey again and again. So dhira, meaning the wise one, is not disturbed by seeing the changes of the body, because knowing that I am the soul, I don't go through any changes. And even when this body drops, I will carry on to another body. So now we come to the next practical verse. Here, Krishna wants to introduce a very important quality of every spiritual seeker. We should have this quality. What is this quality? So here in verse 14 he says to Arjuna, O son of Kunti, the context of the senses and their objects which give rise to the feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, etc., are transitory and fleeting. Therefore, Arjuna, endure them. So what is a very important quality here of the spiritual seeker that Krishna is giving us? Let us understand first the verses here. Matras means the senses. Okay, how many senses we have? 5 senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. So he says when the senses of a human being sparsha, meaning they contact sense objects. Now what does it mean? Eyes, each sense has its own sense object. Eyes will only contact a form, right? Ears will contact sound. tongue will contact taste, skin will contact touch. So every sense has got its own sense object. Now throughout the day, as we are going on, our 5 senses, they are also called as indriyas. Okay. Indriyas has got another beautiful translation. It means tentacles. So where do the senses go? Do they go inward? They go outward. The tendency of the senses is to contact everything in the what we call in the creation. So as the senses are contacting things in the creation, there were bound to be experiences. What are the experiences? He gives us some examples here. śīta-uṣṇa. Sita means cold, uṣṇa means heat. So the skin during summer contacts heat and during winter becomes cold. Now what do you do when there is summertime and it's very hot? Do you say, why is the summer so hot? What do you do? Or can you change the nature of summer? Can summer be cold? We know summer is hot, right? So what do you do? What do you do in summer? You wear light clothing, you drink lots of water, hydrate yourself, you take the right precautions. Why? Because you know you can't change summer. Therefore, what do you have to change? Yourself. So this is a very delicate message now he's giving us. There are many things which we can change, we change. What about things we can't change? What do? We spend our whole lives trying to change, make external changes, but we never address the internal change which is in our control. So śīta-uṣṇa is one type of opposites, pairs of opposites that we experience from the bodily level. Then another experience he gives us is sukha-duḥkha. Sukha is happiness, sometimes we face. Dukha, we face sorrow, which again comes from the external world. Okay? So all this which is happening, it is beyond our control. So the question is asked here, are you a thermometer or a thermostat? No answer. Are you a thermometer or a thermostat? Or which one do you want to be, thermometer or thermostat? What does a thermometer do? It reacts to the situation. What is the temperature? It tells you what it is. What does the thermostat do? It sets the situation. It responds back to the situation. So things that we can change, we change. Things that we cannot change, we have to learn to adapt to it. We have to learn to adapt instead of crying about it. So it tells us this very important lesson also, which we all know, but it reinforces this. He says, all these experiences that we go through life, as our senses are continuously contacting the world, we cannot stop that interaction. But what we should understand, every experience is agama payana. It has a beginning and it has an end. So, heat comes, heat goes, summer comes, summer goes away, winter comes, winter goes away, pain comes, pain goes away, happiness comes, happiness also goes away. Nothing is lasting at all, nothing lasts. So, the next quality of the soul here is given. The next quality is that it is what you call the body is anitya, is impermanent, the soul is permanent. And here he tells him, okay, now what should we do? Okay, how do we respond back to things? So here comes the key in the verse here. Thumbs, the word thumbs means for things that we cannot change. There are things that we can change, we change. Okay, what about those we cannot change? He gives us a very important spiritual practice. Titikṣa. Titikṣa means you must have inner strength to endure that. What you cannot change, you got to find that inner strength to endure. And this is a very important quality for a spiritual seeker. Because when we are on the spiritual path, you will meet a lot of challenges, you will meet a lot of obstacles. Many times there are students who say, sir, I wanted to come for the class, but suddenly my friends dropped in the house. At the time when you're leaving for the class, Now you have a decision to make. Tell them to go away and come for the class and irritate them, or entertain them. So many times in our life, as we are going on the spiritual path, there are obstacles. In fact, if you read about experiences of devotees, even when they go on pilgrimage, they meet a lot of obstacles on the way. These obstacles are all a challenge to us, whether are we willing to go through all these trials and tribulation to reach our goal. So there was one Swamiji who gave us a very nice message. He said, stop, not till the goal is reached. Stop, not till the goal is reached. That means what? You should not stop until the goal is reached. So there's Titikṣa, means perseverance, inner strength. You must have that. So there is one notes I've sent to you today, which is called Shatka Sampati. Okay, I've listed there. Shatka means 6. Sampati means treasures. These are the treasures that are to be cultivated by a spiritual seeker. If you are serious on reaching your spiritual goal, these 6 qualities you must possess. You must cultivate. These 6 qualities, if you have, it will progress you on the spiritual path. So what are the 6 qualities? I've given you. The first one is called Sama. What is Sama? Sama is first mastery of the mind. So we have to be very careful to bring this mind under our discipline. Because what is the nature of the mind? What is the nature of the mind? Huh? Restless. It's subject to likes and dislikes, right? Your mind tells you to do what you like and run away from what you dislike. So nowadays also you find there's very good example of likes and dislikes, especially when people go to restaurants and eat, First thing when the food comes, what they do? Take out photo. Then after that, some of you do it, I know you're laughing already. After you take photo, what happens? Upload to Facebook. Why? Why you upload to Facebook? Because you're waiting for the likes and dislikes, isn't it? You want to know how many of your friends say, like, very beautiful, very nice dish, or dislike. Now what happens if you get so many likes? Very happy, isn't it? Then next restaurant you go, you do the same thing, suddenly you find lot of dislikes. So what happens now? You become sad. So you have handed over the remote control of your happiness and sorrow to another person. So this is basically likes and dislikes, which our scriptures have told us, and now people are doing it and they get irritated when so many dislikes come. Then why did you post the picture there? Don't post. So mind, mastery over the mind, meaning to overcome these likes and dislikes. If you are to overcome these likes and dislikes, we must make sure that our intellect or buddhi is strong, so that can control and guide the mind. Okay, so first is samaha, mastery of the mind. The second is another very important quality. It is called dhammaha, which is discipline of the senses, the 5 senses. Because they like to run outwards, they are looking for entertainment, pleasure. So we have to be able to control. And continuously in the Bhagavad Geeta and many other scriptures, control of the senses is always what we call advised. It's very important. Because the senses, when they stray, what happens when the senses run away? Any one particular sense runs away, what happens? The mind runs along with it. So if you are trying to focus on something, if your one sense gets distracted, your mind goes away in that direction. So that's why discipline and control of the senses is very important. Third is Shraddha or faith. Now, faith in what? So Shankaracharya guides us and tells us you must have faith in God, faith in yourself that you will attain the goal, faith in the words of the scriptures, you believe that the words are correct, they're giving you the right guidance, and fourth is faith in the Guru. So these 4 faiths are very important. Of course, you should not have blind faith. That's why in chapter 4 also Krishna says, you must question. Anything you don't understand, you have doubts, you have confusion, question. Clear your doubts and ignorance. So Shraddha. Then the next quality is Uparati. Uparati means while you're on the spiritual path, it does not mean you neglect your duties. So what are your responsibilities? What are your duties? You must carry on, fulfill them to the maximum. Uparati. And then that comes the next quality, Titikṣa, which we are discussing in this verse. Forbearance. Never give up attitude. You are going to strive, you are telling yourself you will make it to the goal. So you must have that perseverance. Otherwise it's difficult. It's a challenge to come for Gita classes. It's a challenge to read the scriptures, to sit down. The mind tends to wander. Next quality is Samadhanam, which means have a single pointed mind fixed on what is the goal in your life. What do you want to attain? So you must have some purpose, what you want to attain. Samadhanam. What are you trying to attain from this Bhagavad Gita class? What are you going to attain from the study of the scriptures? You must have a very clear goal in mind. Okay. So what does he say here in verse number 14? He says that all kinds of experience comes. Now, how do I cultivate a strong mind? That's a question we want to ask ourselves. How do I cultivate a strong mind? So, according to scriptures, the only way is through intense devotion to the Lord. That's how we steady our mind through our prayers, chanting our mantras, going to temples. Intense devotion and surrender to the Lord. That is the first one. How to strengthen the mind. And the second is through study of the spiritual knowledge, the scriptures. So devotion and knowledge are the two ways for us to make our mind strong, right? So there's a beautiful prayer I came across, which a devotee posted. The prayer is simple. It says, "O Lord, give me the courage to change what I can change." I need courage also. What can be changed? Give me, the prayer to the Lord is, give me the courage to change what can be changed. Give me the strength to accept that which cannot be changed. Cannot be changed, I need inner strength, Titikṣa, to face that which cannot be changed. And that's not enough. What else is required? Oh Lord, give me the wisdom to know the difference between what can be changed and what cannot be changed. So I should also have that understanding also. So therefore, how do you measure physical strength? How do you measure physical strength? By the amount of weight you carry, right? Physical strength, I carry 50 pounds, I carry 100 pounds. How do you measure spiritual strength? This was told by John Ruskin, a very famous philosopher. Physical strength is measured by what we can carry. Spiritual strength by what we can bear. How much of pain that we can bear. So it is that spiritual strength, that Titikṣa, that forbearance, that helps us to go through. Through devotion and through scriptural studies, we can develop a strong mind and we can therefore have Titikṣa, right? So we will stop here now, verse 14, and we'll come back next week and resume the class. End with the prayer. Vasudeva sutam devam kansa chanuramardanam devaki paramanandam krishnam vande jagadgurum. Thank you. Hari Om.